Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to share 5 harsh realities about working as a software engineer at a FAANG company that nobody is talking about. If you're new to the channel, my name is Johnny. I'm a staff software engineer at Meta. I've been working at Meta for more than 5 years now and other Silicon Valley companies, and I've experienced both the amazing benefits and the not so great realities firsthand. So let's dive in. The first harsh reality is that once you're in a FAANG company, the pressure never stops. You might think that landing the job is just the hard part, but that is just the beginning. At Meta, promotions and PSC ratings are highly competitive, and you're expected to constantly improve. For example, at most FAANG companies, there's something called a terminal level, which is usually around the senior level. If you're not at this level or higher, this just means that maintaining your performance is not enough. You're expected to grow by a certain period of time, and if you don't, you could potentially get let go. Sustaining is just not good enough. This creates an interesting dynamic where even after you've made it into one of these prestigious companies, the journey is really just beginning. Every performance cycle brings a new set of expectations. This makes PSC a big part of the FAANG experience. This can really affect your day-to-day work, and people will actually start optimizing for it. For example, as a review period approaches, you'll notice that people will become more strategic about projects that they take on, or they might focus on only high visibility work for their promotions. It kind of becomes a game that you need to learn how to play in order to do well for your PSCs. To me, it's not like the most ideal experience, but if you want to work at a FAANG company, this is just a game that you need to learn how to play. The second harsh reality is that meetings and organizational complexity will drain most of your time and energy. What most people don't realize is just how massive these companies really are. At Meta, we have tens and thousands of engineers working across hundreds of interconnected systems. This scale creates an exponential increase in complexity for even seemingly simple projects. When you're working on a feature that touches multiple systems owned by different teams across different time zones, the coordination overhead just explodes. One small change might require alignment with 5 different teams, each with their own priorities and concerns and OKRs. Because of this scale and complexity, meetings just tend to balloon out of control. I once tracked my time for an entire month, and I was shocked to find that I only spent about 20% of my time actually coding. The rest was consumed by meetings, documentations, and getting alignment from other teams. The decision-making process is painfully slow. For example, there were many features that I worked on that required getting buy-ins from multiple different teams before I could even start implementing it. By the time that I got all the necessary alignment, the priorities had shifted and the feature was dramatically changed. So that meant I had to go through the same process with those same teams again. All that time spent in meetings and writing specs essentially wasted. This really is the reality of shipping products at these massive companies. The organizational complexities creates an environment where your productivity as an individual engineer takes a massive hit. When writing code becomes almost secondary to the coordination of the work, for someone who loves to build things, this can be incredibly frustrating. The third harsh reality is that office politics, networking, and visibility play a huge role in getting your job done at FAANG companies and also your promotions. Many engineers come in thinking that their code will speak for itself, but that's rarely how it actually works. At these large companies, you'll see brilliant engineers getting passed over for promotions after another because they weren't good enough at advocating for themselves or aligning with leadership priorities. Technical skills alone won't really get you that far at FAANG companies, unless you're Carmack, of course. If you're not good at playing the political game, you might stagnate, no matter how good of an engineer you are. For example, an engineer might spend months on a project that delivers excellent technical results, but if it doesn't align with the shift in company priorities, it might just go unnoticed. Meanwhile, someone else who's working on maybe a less technically challenging, but more visible project with executive sponsors, for example, they may get that promotion. The reality is that you need to be strategic about which projects you take on and which leadership you follow. You need to understand who the key stakeholders are and make sure your work is visible to them. And you also need to be comfortable advocating for yourself in a way that most engineers actually find uncomfortable. Engineers who transition from like smaller companies to a FAANG company often find this aspect particularly challenging. At smaller companies, merit often seems to directly translate to recognition, but at FAANG companies, a lot of the political landscape is much more complex, and it actually is a big factor. The fourth harsh reality is that at a FAANG company, you'll be working with a massive codebase that have evolved over many years, even decades. I came to Meta expecting to innovate and build new and exciting features every single day, but the reality is that a ton of my time is actually spent fixing bugs, dealing with tech debt, and making small incremental improvements to our existing systems. Innovating from scratch is extremely rare. 0 to 1s are very rare. Even when you do get to build something new, you're actually constrained by existing infrastructure and compatibility requirements and countless dependencies that still exist. I remember a time where I'd spent days trying to fix a seemingly simple bug, only to discover it was caused by an interaction between multiple different systems, 3 of which were actually just legacy code that nobody fully understand anymore. This reality can actually be really demoralizing if you came to FAANG expecting to only work on the cutting edge technology all the time. So really think about this point before you jump in. Now, the final harsh reality is what we call the golden handcuffs. The compensation at FAANG companies is exceptional, but it creates this psychological prison that's actually really hard to escape. You know, I actually hesitate to even actually talk about this because it's basically like a 1%er problem, right? But honestly, it's a legitimate concern for a lot of FAANG engineers who has grown accustomed to these levels of pay. Once you're making, over 500K as a senior engineer and even more RSUs every year, bonuses, and like a wide variety of perks, walking away becomes incredibly difficult. I've seen so many colleagues and other just like coworkers who are deeply unhappy and burnt out, but just couldn't leave because they've grown so accustomed to their lifestyle. And I even felt this myself sometimes here and there, where sometimes things were like really frustrating at work, but the thought of giving up all of my comp and all of the benefits was just too painful. And for people who've been around for a long time because of stock compensation, other FAANG companies may even just have a hard time even matching your comp. So this leads to a really strange phenomenon where people may just stay at these FAANG companies even though they no longer enjoy it, watching their skills narrow to like company specific technologies, and just like kind of wasting away, being burnt out. Honestly, it's a pretty privileged problem to have, for sure, but it still is a psychological trap that affects many FAANG engineers. So is it all worth it? Now, I don't want this video to sound too negative. Working at Meta has been an incredible opportunity for me. It's like winning the lottery, to be honest. The compensation, resources, and impact is unmatched. But like anything in life, it's still just a job, and it comes with trade-offs that aren't often discussed. For me, the benefits really outweigh the downsides, and I believe that going into these roles with an understanding of some of these harsh realities is a good benefit for you in the long run if you're really thinking about joining. At the end of the day, whether FAANG is right for you really depends on what your value is. If you prioritize compensation, prestige, and truly having large-scale impact in the world, there's nothing better than a FAANG company, to be honest. However, if you value creativity, freedom, minimal politics, and just being able to spend time coding, you may want to look somewhere else. But that's it for this video. I hope you gained some useful insights into the harsh realities of working at a FAANG company. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to check out my other videos. Leave me a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.